A solid core, freshly drawn wrap wire, and an impossibly thin film coating work together to extend the life of XS, as well as its uncompromising tone. XS, the coated string that's more than the sum of its parts.
Hey everyone, this is Chris Keys for Premier Guitar. I'm joined today by Zane Carney. Zane is, you probably know him from Spider-Man on Broadway. He's played alongside John Mayer, his project Evan and Zane, Evan Rachel Wood. He's a man of many talents, and as you can see, he lives inside a guitar store.
Guys, welcome to Guitar Center 2.0, Sam Ash 3.0. Well,
Zane, I love your studio/live space.
Man, thank you so much. I sleep behind that amp. It's great. No, I'm very, very fortunate, and I live in Los Angeles, California, and yeah, I love having this space over here. I'm really thankful.
Well, man, I appreciate you taking the time, and as people will see throughout this video, the awesome setup you've gone. You got two cameras. It's probably looking better than our side of the camera, so I appreciate it. But we're here to talk about Alter Ego, which is going to be out at the end of April, your new record.
That's right, and that goofy little intro, which I didn't even think of practicing, which I should have, that's the rhythm guitar part from one of the songs, Brain Freeze, off Alter Ego.
It's a fantastic song name.
Yeah, it feels like it too. The song really goes between ferocious manic anxiety and calming, cooling relaxation. So you heard the anxiety bit. I should have probably played the cooling bit. That would have been a better intro.
Well, man, let's start with the Telecaster. What makes this one, because I kind of started out the video before we start rolling, I said pick up kind of the guitar that you're most kind of vibing with and you're number one, and you went right for this one.
Yes. Yeah, this really is my number one, yeah. And I had a dream about it last night. I think I was excited about us getting together today, and in my dream, someone was playing a Jerry Donahue Telecaster like this. But yeah, so this is my 1998 Jerry Donahue Telecaster, but it's really not a Jerry Donahue because I changed everything that makes it that. For those who are gear nerds, which I hope is most of us because we're on Premier Guitar, the pickups normally on the Jerry Donahue Telecaster are a Strat pickup neck and then a Tele bridge, and then there's a 5-way selector. So I took all that out and went with a Broadcaster neck pickup and a Telecaster bridge and went to a 3-way selector. I did that in like probably 2003 or 4. And then I sanded down the neck after playing David Kahn's 1952 Broadcaster. That was just totally sanded on the back. So I sanded down the neck. And then I had an what do they call this? Buzz Featon nut put in. Yeah, put that in. And then I destroyed this part of the guitar by hitting it with my slide during the years I was in a band called Carney. We were kind of a jazz-infused, psychedelic, Beatlesy, Jeff Buckley-ish rock band. And we had a song that started off with some delay and really bluesy and scary and sort of New Orleansy, and I would hit the guitar with a bunch of delay on. So that happened. And I really have Eric Chaz to thank for this. Eric Chaz is an incredible guitar tech in Los Angeles, and he did most of that work and installation for me.
Now, we'll go back to the pickups. Was that something you kind of always, like, why take a guitar that you bought with the 5-way and kind of the little bit more, I guess, air quotes, versatility, because, you know, that's a subjective term, but the 5-way, the Strat pickup, and you kind of reworked it into a Telecaster.
Right, exactly. The thought behind it was probably naivete. I think I was 19, and I went, oh, wow, this would be cool if it was a real Tele, because I love Jeff Buckley. Even though all of the work I was doing at that time, work's kind of the wrong word, but all the playing I was doing was jazz, 100% at that time. And I think what happened was I came to a gig, and a guitar that we'll talk about later was in the shop, and at that time I didn't have all these fancy guitars behind me, so this was one of my 3 or 4 guitars. I brought it into the gig and kind of apologized. I know it's a jazz gig, sorry. And my keyboard player friend on the gig said, dude, I think that sounds way more like you than any other guitar. I said, nah, man, you're not supposed to play jazz on this. You're supposed to play it on my 335, which is, we'll talk about. And then I noticed during it, actually, there is something about the precision and directness of a Tele versus a humbuckered, sort of mellow, jello-y sound. So I went, I wonder if I could get halfway between what's happening with this Strat pickup I'll go online. And I don't know how I found this website, but I discovered Kinman pickups in Australia.
Oh, wow.
And they're noiseless. And at that time, I was doing local work in LA. I needed something noiseless. The power is so bad at LA venues. And he shipped them over. Yeah, try the Broadcaster neck. And then the Telecaster bridge. And yeah, so that really is why I made this guitar into what it is. It was really the jazz background of I want something a little richer, a little more low mids. So let's get rid of the Strat neck pickup. And then if we're going to do just a real Tele, I guess I'll just go to the easier 3D selector. That was the logic behind it.
And would you say that because you're so diverse in your music, your playing, and obviously the instruments that you do own, would you say that this guitar is what you're most fluent on, meaning like how you express yourself?
Yeah, it is. And I think that's why on Alter Ego, I played this guitar for every song except for Things You Aren't, which is an homage to all the things you are. The idea with this record was I want to come in and have my favorite rhythm section of Gene Coye, Jerry Watts Jr., bringing Katisse Buckingham to give us some craziness to play around with. And I knew the record had a specific vision, which was basically 3 things. I wanted to have this combo. I just love playing with Gene and Jerry. I wanted to document that. 2, I wanted to capture it on vintage microphones and straight to tape. And then 3rd, to bring it back to this guitar, I wanted it to be pretty much fully improvised because I wanted to capture that spirit that happens when it's 2 a.m. and you're really, really playing, not memorizing a tune. So I came into the studio, I had like 10 guitars. This is all I picked up. Because once we were in there, I realized I need to be able to be nimble and I need to be able to express myself honestly and truthfully. And this is the only guitar that I'm really comfortable with in that sort of environment.
It's funny how you break down those 3 kind of hallmarks or pillars that you worked around this project, the Alter Ego, the album, is because it sounds so like alive. So the tape makes sense, the kind of like, let's do it once or twice mentality, and you kind of sticking with your best friend there.
Right, exactly. And I think that's definitely in contrast to the other work I've done with Carney or with different artists I've played with where it's, match this sound, or I'll write a song around a guitar. But you're right, there is a different thing in the true jazz and blues world where you have your axe, and that's something you go to battle with.
Yeah.
I think of Wes Montgomery and his L5, like you have your guitar. And for me, it really is this. Ironically, we'll talk about another guitar later that is actually my signature guitar. But this is my improvisational spirit wagon.
Okay,
If that
I like
doesn't
that.
make me sound too bizarre.
No, not at all. Well, we should probably knock out strings, and I assume standard tuning before we meet some of your other friends.
Yes, standard tuning, size 10 to 46. Is that the standard 10 pack?
Yep.
Yeah. And all these guitars that I'm going to show today have D'Addario NYXL strings. I've really been liking those.
Okay, cool. Well, do you have anything you want to say more about this, or we can probably revisit this with the pedalboard?
That's pretty much it. The last thing I'll say is a lot of people go full Broadcaster or full Tele, and it was my idea to just, try a weird combination. I think I bought a full Broadcaster set and full Tele set, and I think I tried both. Tele, neck, Broadcaster, bridge. I think I tried both of them. And what I love about this, you can kind of hear it, just the neck pickup has an angry aggression a little bit. There's more presence maybe, but there's also more straight in the middle mids than a Telecaster, which is more bloomy and more bell-like. And then when I go to the bridge pickup, it still has that twang, but because of the way Kinman winds his pickups, to me it sounds a little more rock and roll than straight up, B-bender kind of stuff. And the middle pickup on this is really unique because very few people have this weird pickup combination. I mean, it sounds mostly like a Tele middle. I love all 3 pickup positions. I love you. Give you kisses. I love this guitar.
Well, let's meet another friend.
Yeah, great. So, let's see. Well, I guess I talked about this, so I'll go straight into this. This is my signature guitar. So this is the guitar I should be promoting. The truth is, and I love this guitar so much, I play it probably these days more than anything because of the nature of lockdown. I'm doing solo concerts on this setup you see here. I'm doing streaming on Twitch with the same setup you see here. And this guitar gets picked up by the mics because of its fully hollow nature. And then you can hear the amp too. The combination's very nice. So this is my signature guitar. It's the Zane Carney signature Hofner Jazzica. And the thing is, we stopped selling these. So there are only about 20 in the world, and they've been purchased. And I have two. I have a back, the what do they call it? The production line model back there, and then I have this one, which is the original. So yeah, I'll give you the specs on this. This thing is so special.
Now, before we dive in, Zane, I'm just curious, how did you get hooked up with Hofner? Because they're, not first of thought when it comes to an American guitarist.
Right, totally. So when I was 18 years old, I was studying jazz guitar at USC, and I was really dead set on being a straight-up jazz guy. It's a long story, but I was going to play with Michael Bublé right out of high school, and then went to USC, played with a different artist named Renee Olstead, and I was just laser focused on that being my only mode of expression. Later on in my life, songwriting, singing, other styles came to be. So at that time, I had a friend named Matt Morantz, incredible saxophone player. He was playing whatever saxophone company is partnered with what's called the music group, and one of the instruments underneath the music group is the Hofner, brand. They were looking to put together a young jazz group to do the IAJE festivals, to do Downbeat magazine parties, all this stuff, and they wanted me to be the guitar player. So I met with the president of Hofner. I played for him. He said, "Yeah, great. You're the guitar player. You're going to be our young artist jazz guitarist. We have Matt on sax. We have these other instruments, we're covered. We're going to give you a guitar." So they gave me a new president, which I'll show you later too. And yeah, there was a relationship that developed with them, and I loved that instrument. And then I bought this one myself from them at an endorsee discount. I just, I want this guitar. It's very special. So yeah, I got hooked up with them in college because of my jazz playing. Yeah.
I understand. Cool. Well, now with that introduction, let's hear about it.
Okay, dude, this guitar is so sick. Okay, so it's fully hollow, and look at this taper. I think you'll like this. So there's a weird taper which brings the guitar not only closer to your body, but also makes it feed back less because the way the chamber's working. So that's kind of nice. And then the nut I messed around with, I put in an Irvana nut on this one. I was super into changing nuts in like 2005. I don't know why. So I did that for intonation, I guess. And then everything you see is ebony. So anything that's black on the guitar is fully ebony, except for this pickup, which I think has maybe an ebony cover, but obviously it's a magnetic pickup. It's a Buscarino P90. So it's like an acoustic-y P90 pickup that he makes. He hand wires. And so I put this pickup in myself. And I asked permission because I was a kid, right? I was 19.
Yeah.
So, hey, can I change the pickup? Yeah, you bought the guitar. Oh, but I'm a Hofner artist now. Right, but whatever. Okay, cool. Put this pickup in, and it turned this into the most unique sounding jazz guitar I've, at this point, ever played. It doesn't even really sound like a jazz guitar. And then finishing off the specs, it's a real simple instrument. Oh, it's a AAA grade spruce top. I should know more about this stuff. Flame maple or some sort of maple in the back. Dude, honestly, I need to learn more about all these wood things. And then the coolest thing is it comes with these covers. So I don't have them right now with me, but I can grab it in a second. But they go into these S-hole situations right here to block feedback. So during live gigs, I can bring it down probably 15 decibels, the acoustic noise, which allowed me to play this on stage with my rock band Carney, allowed me to play it on stage with John Mayer, which is eventually how it became my signature guitar. Hofner saw us on stage and on the Crossroads Festival. They're like, "Dude, no one knows about that guitar." I said, "Hey, no one uses this pickup. Want to partner with Buscarino and make it a thing?" And we did.
That's right.
Yeah, it's really cool, and I can play it for you a little bit if you'd like to hear it.
Yeah, let's hear it. Yeah, absolutely.
I was about to go into some blues stuff because part of what makes this jazz, quote-unquote, guitar so weird is that it digs in really nicely. But it also, as you saw, feels really warm and open. Yeah, and there's just one pickup, so there's some weird sounds you can get with this thing. I love it.
Man, I can't really say I've heard too many jazz box guitars with the P90 like that. It's
I know.
Cool.
And also what's fun about that, because of the low end spectrum on it, I play with a Pog a lot, and when I go low end, it's and I do a lot of this with a looper, so I'll build these really massive sounding blooming things.
Man, that's fun with the Pog. That sounds fun.
Pretty fun, yeah. I love this thing. Yeah, man.
Well, should we move on to another instrument?
Sure. Yeah. So what else do we have here? We have another guitar over here. All right. So this is my Gibson ES335. It's a 2001 model.
Now, how did you get this, and how did it become yours?
Yeah, so this was a gift from my mom. God bless her, thank goodness. She knew that I was getting into jazz. I had gotten really into music theory and Wes Montgomery. And at that age, I think I was 16 or 17, I asked her if there was a way we could buy a jazz guitar for me so I could actually get into a good school and really take it seriously. And we went to the store and found this. And it was halfway between what I was comfortable with, which is this Strat behind me, and a proper, open, full hollow jazz guitar. So I got this. Everything is original in it. All the pickups, all the tuners, everything. And and it's blue, which I love.
Now, what makes obviously the obvious question is, well, it doesn't sound right or feel right, but what makes that guitar almost untouchable in terms of its specs and how you kept it true to form versus that Telecaster that you pretty much rebuilt?
Yeah, that's a great question. That Telecaster, I had done a few gigs where I noticed it was lacking something for my style of playing, whereas this guitar from day one, it kind of taught me how to play jazz, this guitar. And so I feel like there's a sound that's attached of maybe learning harmony and learning relationship between chord changes and all that I hear in my head when I'm hearing the reference chords. So it sounds like this in my head. So I didn't want to mess with it. It's also really rich and warm, and I like 335s like that. Most of them have a nice presence and a crystally sort of thing on the neck pickup if you want. This doesn't. This is really rich. So it fills out a thing in my guitar collection that has worked on a lot of sessions.
Now, could we hear maybe your obviously you got 3 pickup selection between neck, middle, and bridge.
Yeah.
Could we maybe hear how they sound different?
Sure. So yeah, this is a little, this is what I played back when I was 16 at Guitarmageddon at Guitar Center. That was fun. I mean, I'm not going to play the full piece, but I played around midnight, and it's on this pickup. Let's see. Yeah, let me turn my slap off. Whoa. So that's the neck pickup. The middle pickup has, to me, a very Radiohead kind of thing to it. Like that album In Rainbows comes to mind. And then the bridge pickup is pretty mellowed out too. Again, I should have tuned this guitar beforehand, but I think you get the idea.
Man, it sounds great. And it's funny how like a 335 for a certain player can do one thing, but it reminds me of like a Telecaster that could go pretty much anywhere. You could see 335, like a lot of people use them for a lot of styles of music.
Totally, man. Yeah, I've seen some doo-wop, 50s stuff with it. I've seen shoegaze bands with 335. I think Haim sometimes plays a 335. I've seen straight up bebop players do it. So yeah, it's a really versatile instrument. And this one being slightly darker, it's really been a nice thing to have during a recording session. If we need something really mysterious and milky. But also, I brought this into the session for Alter Ego, and I just had it sitting there in my guitar closet thing. And the band was getting ready for the session that day. We only did 3 days. And I pulled out this guitar and thought, oh, man, does this guitar sound good today? And I just started playing. And then the engineer and co-producer, Chris Rondinella, just went, meh, turned on the tape machine. I didn't hear it go on, so I wasn't in my head at all. and then that ended up being the piece Things You Aren't.
That's a great, solo ensemble that you did, or a solo piece you did. That's awesome.
Thanks, man. Thank you. And that was on this guitar.
And it was really that spur of the moment, like just.
Yep.
Wow.
I think if I were smarter, I would have kept on the end of the recording. You hear me at the end of the recording say, "Hey man, did I hear the tape machine go on? Did you record that? Because that would have been cool." And he says, "Yeah, I did." Oh, great, fantastic. We actually had to do a trick on that recording. We had to pull out some bass because people were still warming up, and the bass was coming through my mic. He was testing things out. So we had to do a trick to get the bass out. It was crazy.
Oh, that's awesome. That would have been fun to have that in there, like one of those, like, like you hear like Bonham's drum still going. You can hear Paul and George or Paul cursing.
Right.
Yeah, it's one of those like nuggets in a record.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Well, should we meet yet another friend?
Yeah, totally. All right. Oh boy. Let's see. Okay, so this guitar has been really fun recently. So we're kind of keeping it jazzy today because I know we were going to talk about alter ego, and so this is another jazz guitar that I've recently acquired. So this is the Heritage H575, the Artisan Aged model. It's a pretty new guitar. I think it came out a year and a half ago or so, and I did some stuff with Heritage. We announced a new guitar called, I think, the H150. And they said, "Hey, we know you're mainly a jazz guy. You want to try this thing out?" And so I did, and I really, really love it. It's really straight up classic jazz. And as you can see, I modified that Hofner Jazzica, so that's not really a jazz guitar anymore. And this kind of supplanted that missing part of my full hollow body sound.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, like, how's that sit with the Hofner and the 335 kind of living in those jazz-esque worlds? This is kind of in the center?
Man, you get it, man. Yeah, you're good at this. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because there's the top end, a little bit of that woodiness of the Hofner Jazzica, and then there's the milk of the 335. So, yeah, you nailed it.
And is there anything, since you've had this, that you've done to it, altered?
No, all original, yep. And I should know more about this guitar. Man, I'm realizing right now that I think when you're doing a Premier Guitar rig rundown, you should know everything. So I nailed it in the sense that I didn't. But they sent it and they said we thought you'd like it, and I ended up not liking it. I ended up loving it. I can show this on the close-up camera. I love the checking of the wood. I don't really know how they did that. Did they actually have this thing, sit in a garage for 20 years? But they did a fantastic job with the finish. Really beautiful. Now, having your hands on it, and it's been yours, and you've owned probably how many new guitars? How does that feel? Does it feel like an old instrument? Because I've never owned a relic guitar. Yeah, it really does. Oh man, I'm such a fan of relics, and yet I don't have any except for this.
Oh. Right.
Yeah, I love how they look. I'm very vain. God dang it. But it really sounds great. I'll show you right now. I mean, I'm not sure if you'll hear it as much through Zoom, but it sounds, yeah. I love playing non-jazz triads too on jazz guitars. I like that, how it sounds. But even that top B string, that reminds me so much of Joe Pass. I love it. Yeah. It really does that era really nicely, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a classic sound to it.
Yeah. And then the other pickups, the bridge pickup's pretty smoking. Again, I love putting this pog on different guitars and seeing what happens. There's a lot of, I don't know if it's low mids or what, but there's a lot of rounded attack. I really like that about this.
And is there anything else you want to say about it, or anything other tone you want to show off before we move on?
The only thing I'll say is this is my only guitar, I think, right now with 13s. It comes with size 13s, I believe. And I've been liking that. I realized, oh man, I should actually play more guitars that are 12s or 13s, because that's what I started on. I started on actually size 14 George Benson Tomastic Infelds. That was all I played from age 12 to 18. Because all I was doing was playing jazz. I was convinced that was all I wanted to do. Thankfully, coming back to it with the Zane Carney Quartet jazz stuff, I've been able to really get back to my roots. This reminds me of the pain of learning. But it doesn't hurt. Thankfully, the strength has stuck around. I'm not bending on it, though, so it's not that hard to play on. But the richness and warmth of these strings is really nice. And, I don't know. I'm just looking forward to doing more videos and records and things on a guitar like this that's really kind of in that Joe Pass spectrum.
Yeah, like a sweet spot for that era, like you said.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, what should we move on to next?
I got one more. I mean, I'm going full jazz tonight, so I figured I'd commit. All right. So this is the guitar that started it all. I haven't played this guitar in I don't even know how long. Okay, so this is my Hofner New President. This is the first proper jazz guitar I got, and it was gifted to me by Hofner because they wanted me to be in their young artist jazz ensemble, which I talked about before. Man, I practiced so much on this. I would just sight read every day. I would open the real book and I would play this guitar for 45 minutes of shedding, and then I'd do another hour and a half of just working on scales and stuff. So the guitar means a lot to me. Same thing as the Hofner Jazzica. This is all ebony everything that's black, the fretboard, pick guard, everything. And then I put in that same Buscarino pickup because I really liked it. Oopsie, broke all the rules, sorry. It's really, really nice, triple A, quadruple, quintuple A. I mean, it's really, really nice spruce from Germany, and then flamed maple on the back and sides. Really glossy and beautiful. And this is handmade, but the way it sounds is very old school. So what's that version that...
Oh man, sounds wonderful.
It's that. It's so amazing. I have to play this guitar more. Really rich, really crispy. In that Joe Pass thing, which he's a huge influence of mine, and kind of in some ways that Wes Montgomery thing, because everyone knows Wes played with a thumb, that was his thing, and yet ever since Wes, people turn their tone knob off all the way generally in jazz settings as much as they can, and I always think a thumb has a lot of air, a lot of presence. So that's why I love this pickup. I keep introducing it to my jazz guitars because it has that top end. That kind of gives me the Wes Montgomery feel. And growing up, I mean, he was basically my favorite musician. Not his smooth jazz stuff, not his melodic stuff even, just his up-tempo, crazy impressions, Caravan, really intense improvisational stuff. That was all I would listen to. And this guitar makes me feel 1% like I'm connected to Wes. So I love this thing.
if that's all it takes, man, that's worth it.
And that's as close as I'll ever get, man. That genius, man. Jeez.
Well, I feel like that's all the guitars, unless there's any hidden gems you want to talk to us about, and we can move on to amp.
All I will say is you can see I have a Telecaster addiction. That's all I'll say. I think I have to. Man, there are some fun ones. That's the Spider-Man guitar I played on Broadway, and that's a backup of the JD Telly, and then this is a custom one a friend made, and that's the road-worn Telly. So yeah, Tellys are kind of my main speaking voice post my true jazz phase of 7 years of guitars like this. Once I sort of started blending with other genres, the Telly became my voice. But no, I don't think there's anything else specific. I feel like we covered the jazziest of jazz guitars that I have. I thought that's fitting because we're talking about the alter ego, Zane Carney Quartet album, which is the jazz stuff I do. So this is my jazz collection, basically.
All right, so you got your Telly back. We're going to start talking about amp, and then we're going to move into pedalboard. But tell me about the connection that this guitar had with that amp for your new record.
Yeah, man. So this guitar has a very focused thing, but it doesn't have too much low end. So I was thinking, okay, I want this jazz record to feel really inspired, and I want to use really unique instruments. I don't want to go just straight up L5 into a Standell and jazz. So I was thinking, man, how do I do this? So I brought this guitar out, knew it needed a little more low end, and then I brought that amp out. So the amp you're seeing behind me is called the Sigmund Sound King. And I want to quickly take a moment to just say how grateful I am to Chris Sigmund and his work. He unfortunately passed away in September of last year, and he was just an absolute genius. Almost every amp I own is a Sigmund. I own 7 of them. Oh, wow. I love him dearly and miss him, and his genius lives on through his work. He's a genius. He was and is. So this is a Sigmund Sound King. I bought this in 2014. It was the first phone call I made. So I had talked to John Mayer about doing his tour. Actually, it was 2013. So I got a phone call. Hey, do you want to go on tour with me? Yeah, I do. Next call. Chris, what are some new amps you're cooking up? What's the newest thing? Oh, man, the Sound King. What is that? Oh, man, it uses 300 B tubes. I said, I don't think I've ever heard of an amp with that. It's like, nah, man, they're for old televisions. You're going to love it. So they're massive tubes. I got a photo for you to show you.
Great.
So yeah, it has that, and then it has, I think, octal preamp tubes. So a lot of headroom, and then the speaker is a 15-inch field coil speaker. So just the fact that it's 15 inches, I think, paired nicely with this guitar. But then the field coil thing, which I don't understand, the genius himself, Chris, did. Something happened in the expression between this guitar and that amp, and I've kind of decided this is the only guitar I'm going to play through that amp because it's just there's something special going on.
Now, just to be fair to the audience, we're not actually mic'd up to the amp. So what are we hearing today as you're playing through stuff? So
today you're hearing a Sigmund Midnight Blues, which is my main amp. It's the amp I used in Carney. It's the amp I used on John Mayer's tours. Almost every recording session, and it's going through a 1x12 tone tubby neodymium hemp cone speaker.
Now, why'd you land on that speaker?
So this was back in 2004 or 5, and I had finally emerged from my jazz snob phase, to be honest. And I was Googling online, I need to play jazz gigs, but I also love rock. What should I do? Talked to Chris. Hey, man, I love your amps. I bought a few from him, a couple. And I said, how can I get a little more headroom? He said, well, my amps, they're vintage old world technology, Zane. They're 1920s to 30s tech. So at the most, we're getting 20 watts to you. But if we try neodymium speakers, you'll get a lot more headroom and more volume. The magnet's just so freaking loud, and it's really lightweight too. So he convinced me to buy a 1x12 cabinet, which you're hearing right now. Okay. That's my 1x12. And then I fell in love with neodymiums, and then I had a 2x12 cabinet made with them. Then I had another 2x12 cab made with them. And then on the John Mayer tour, we had to get a B rig made. So I had 2 amps on stage with him on my A rig, and we said, "Hey Chris, we got to build 2 more of these bad boys." And those have neodymium hemp cones, and yeah, really really cool partnership developed between Tone Tubby, Sigmund, and myself. And yeah, I mean, these 4 amps, I have 4 Midnight Blueses. They are freaking one of a kind. But that amp was necessary for the Alter Ego recording.
All right, Zane, this is my favorite part of the time. Let's start talking pedals.
Yeah. I'm a big pedal guy.
Dude. Yeah, dude. I know you are, so let's go for it.
So if I may, just to briefly state, I started off as a non-pedal guy, and I think that's kind of becoming clear today. We're doing a lot of my jazz guitars. We're talking about the jazz records. I'm a jazz guy. What did that mean? Well, that meant from age 12 to 19, when I was a jazz snob, I didn't own one guitar pedal. I did not. I refused to play them. When I played in this Guitarmageddon competition as a 16-year-old, according to Steve Vai, who was one of the judges in the finals, he said, well, part of what we love about you 16-year-old weirdo, is you didn't use any pedals. You're the only one who didn't use a pedal on the competition. Oh, okay, thanks, cool, man. So I had that as a badge of honor. And then at 19, I realized, what if I had one pedal? And here we are, however many years later, and I recently counted. I have... I almost don't want to say because it sounds like gross, but then again, I guess that's what we're here for. This is the place. So I have about 215 guitar pedals, give or take 5, around that. And some of them are vintage old things. Some of them are new. Some of them were gifted. Some of them were purchased. I do love guitar pedals. I kind of did a 180 on my former self, but there's a reason why I fell in love with what pedal was it that made me fall in love? It was this pedal right here. So This is one of the first pedals I ever bought. This is a Maxon 8999. I went to the Mesa Boogie store in Hollywood, and I tried this out, and I was messing with all these different settings, and it was just so rich and warm, and I learned later it was a bucket brigade, which is a specific style. So this pedal is kind of instrumental in starting me off on the pedal tip, and then I bought like 5 or 6 of these because I'd have one on tour and one in the studio, and one pedal board for small hotel cafe gigs and one pedal board for arenas, and there were all these different boards, and I realized this is kind of a necessary part of my sound, so I'll just keep buying them. So this started things for me.
I've seen it in the many variations of your many pedal boards. I've seen at one point you had 2 of those on one board.
This one does.
Okay.
Yeah, I love that pedal. So what I do with that pedal is, I'll pull it back up. So I basically have 2 settings for this Maxon 8999. One of them is a slapback setting. And I think this is the best slapback pedal on planet Earth. That's just me. Because it doesn't perfectly replicate what you played. Because if you think about it, when you play at Red Rocks or when you play in a room, a hall, whatever it is, and you hear the slapback, it isn't your actual tone slapping back. It's a thinned out, wispy reflection of your tone. Because it's not coming from the amp, it's coming from the wall. So most slapbacks, in my opinion, the mistake they make is they take your exact tone, repeat it. And I'm like, that's not a slapback. That doesn't feel natural to me. But something about this bucket brigade, it spreads it. So you can hear it right now. If I play this, here's my guitar without the 8999. Here's it with it. I'm doing a bunch of repeats too. And as you can hear, it becomes more spread and thin. So if I exaggerate it even more, something like this. There you go. So that sort of weird, bizarro, spread out decay, that works a lot better for me for slapback. So the reason why I have 2 of these on my board is one's for slapback, and then one's routed after my volume pedal to be the bucket, if you will, that I pour my swells into. So I can continually swell back and forth without turning off the delays.
And not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I think it's worth noting is that your tuner isn't first, right? Your
Correct.
volume pedal is.
Yeah, so my tuner comes out of the tuner out of my Ernie Ball Volume Pedal Junior, and that allows 2 things. 1, I'm not doing extra buffering of my signal, and 2, I can have the volume pedal be my full control of volume versus accidentally clicking a pedal and shutting things off.
Perfect. Well, I let you lead us, but I'm curious if you still have the Rumble mod, because I know that's always been like a long-time friend.
Dude, this is awesome that you know that about me. Thank you for knowing that, Chris. That's so cool. So this is one of my Rumble mods. It's about to get sent out for repair, so I have it off of a board. I love this thing. This thing does 2 sounds really well. It does a Brian May kind of low end has been shelved, I guess, or like a high pass filter sort of thing. And it also gives a really rich, juicy mid-range. So there's a boost setting that I rarely use, and then there's the drive setting that I often pair with my Hofner Jazzica, and it's just, dude, I could pull up the Hofner and show you right now. It sounds so good, in my opinion.
I think at that point, you kind of have to.
Hey, let's do it. Okay, so... And this pedal's been giving me trouble, too. Make sure this... All these things have been breaking recently because of the quarantine. I haven't gone to get anything fixed. There we go. Okay, great. So yeah, with the slapback on, this is kind of my main squeeze. It's the Hofner Jazzica, the Zane Carney signature model, and then the Rumble mod, and then the 8999. Those 3 pedals basically make up my quote-unquote sound, I think. So... whatever, you get the idea. Very kind of old world. It's breaking up as though it was through an old small amp. Yeah, I love that HAO rumble mod. And then if I play with my Tele, I use it as more of a gain pedal. So I turn up the gain and it just cuts right. It cuts through like Johnny Greenwood, Radiohead, John Bryan, really sizzly and present. Yeah, so this specific board that we're looking at right now, this is basically my main board the past 2 years. And there are, I think, 18 pedals on it. So it's very specific. It's routed very specifically. Basically, I have all my gain stages up front. So I go into my HAO rumble mod, which we've already talked about as kind of being my main squeeze. Then it goes into a Time Machine preamplifier, which I don't think I've talked to you about yet in this interview. My brother created a guitar pedal company during the quarantine.
Quarantine effects.
Yeah, quarantine effects. So right now I have the 3 on my board, but I have a whole additional side chain of quarantine effects. It's just 6 quarantine effects that I put before this board, so I can choose those. But seriously, if you guys haven't heard yet about my brother's company, I highly recommend checking out quarantineeffectsusa.com. Then I go into a Nick Nitro, which is my favorite fuzz pedal. And then I go into a Reza Fratsitz, which just gives me aggressive overdrive. I rarely use that, but it's nice to have.
Can we hear the fuzz and the
Sure.
Reza?
Oh, yeah, man. So the Reza... I mean, you get the idea. It's just right in your face. So it's really intense. The Nick Nitro is just a freaking joke. Let's see. I will say the setting I have on right now, I pair with my Pog. So I put the Pog on and the Nick Nitro, so it's... I mean, it's really super aggressive.
Oof.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I love it though, man.
Thanks, man. Yeah, and that's part of the fun. I mean, if I had only stayed straight ahead jazz, I don't think I'd be as fulfilled or happy. I mean, once I discovered pedals and these sounds, it led me into other genres, and I think that's why my jazz quartet projects, or I'm sorry, the project itself and the records I've made under it, don't quite sound straight ahead. Because I get to play with these sounds and do some weird stuff. So moving on, we have a pitchfork, which we'll talk about in a sec, but that's a very specific, special part of this board. We have a Boss Vibrato VB2, a vintage one, not the Wazacraft. And then we have a Deluxe Memory Man, which also has become a big part of my sound, especially after working on Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark. This is a true story. Edge, not on this board because it was a different one at the time, he got down and changed the settings for me. He said, here's what you should do for this. I thought, you're literally Edge actually touching a Memory Man, a vintage one, to give me the setting? Are you kidding? This is insane.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a really surreal experience. Is this really happening? He taught me exactly how to do the dotted 8 thing. And the trick is the mix needs to be a lot higher and the repeat should be 2 to 3 at the most. I was like, really? Oh, man, I had the blend down and had a bunch of repeats. That's how you do it? Oh, crazy. I can give an example of that real quick, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my setting is very watery. So I have this sort of setting. So that's kind of a setting I'll use, a watery thing. The Edge setting would be something a little more like this. Less feedback. And let's count out the math. Let's see. Let's see. How's it dotted eighth note go? There we go. Okay, so maybe something like... and less chorus. So at the most 2 or 3 repeats, and so I have a lot more. It gets pretty loud, maybe a little louder than that. And I do 2 to 3 repeats. So what was that one part in Spider-Man? what was it? It was like, I have no idea. I haven't played the show in forever, but it was something like that. But basically, you play eighth notes while having a dotted eighth delay. So I go. And that's not a great part, but you get the idea. And I had been doing it all wrong. What I had done, I had the feedback way too high and the blend down. So I was doing something like... And it was just thin and weird and wispy. And he's like, no, man, we need those repeats to really sing. So he inverted the settings, and the rest is history.
Man, yeah, if you're going to get a lesson, a quick, down and dirty lesson on a deluxe memory man, he's the guy.
Seriously. So yeah, that was that pedal. And then moving on, I have a Keeley Compressor Pro. I don't use it too much because I don't compress my signal that often, but I'll use it if I'm doing a slide guitar solo, or rarely if I want to get into that spanky sort of beautiful stuff that Corey Wong's been doing, stuff like that. I will use it. And then moving on, I have, as you saw, the two Maxon 8999s, but they're in a different order. So that first Maxon 8999 comes right after my gain stages, and then loops back into the Pog and delay. Then that goes into my volume pedal, and then out of that, I go right into the Mel 9, which I actually use on this Zane Carney Quartet alter ego thing. There's a song called Minority. It's a Gigi Grice piece. We made it sort of samba-esque, and I thought, all right, well, if we're doing straight ahead jazz for at least one song on this record, I want to do some weird stuff to it. So I put the Mel 9 flute patch on, so it was mixed in sort of like Strawberry Fields Forever. And then I think I also had the VB2 on, the vibrato pedal, the Boss, and then I had my slapback on, my 8999, and then I think I had my rumble mod on. So it was jazz through those, basically, which I can give you a piece, a little taste of. It was something like this. Less of a mix, though. It was something more... It was something like this. Something like that. And playing jazz with that tone... I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I love the like you would say, the juxtaposition of it, like that old school, with your well-versed jazz vocabulary with those funny stacked effects.
Right, and that I appreciate that you noticed that, because that was the essential goal of the album. It was to mix this ferocious, intense LA jazz scene that hasn't really been documented as much as I think it should be, mixing that with old world recording techniques, and then using pedals like this to continue to throw people off the traditional path. So yeah, we had a good time making it, and this board was actually used in the recording. This is pretty much every single pedal that was on the album. So moving on and finishing this out. So then I have a JHS Unicorn, which is a univibe sort of thing. And I'll use that when I'm just getting aggressive. I'll have the Pog on and the Nick Nitro, and then I'll just go right in. Just why not? Get wacky. And then that goes into my Strymon Flint, I think. No, actually, the Univibe goes into, I think, my Maxon 8999, the second one. So check out what having that second one does. So if I have... Sorry, I realized that my mic is making noises when I tap this. It shouldn't be. So let me move this off that mic stand a little bit. Nice. So if I were to do swells with just the Memory Man with my normal... let's see. With my normal setting, it would sound something like... And then it would go away whenever I finish the swell. So that's not fun for me. So what I'd rather do is turn on this 8999, which is after my volume pedal, and then this happens. It gets especially sort of mystical when I add the Pog in. So really that 8999 is absolutely crucial to everything that just happened because it's carrying my trails with a bucket brigade, milky, warm, but spreading as it delays tone. It's like the freaking magic bullet right there.
Man, it's funny how that, just pedal placement can play a big role in how a pedal will sound and how you work it with another pedal.
1,000,000%. Yeah, I totally agree. And that's why I've built all my own pedal boards. I mean, I have a bunch of boards behind me, and some of them are empty right now. But every pedal board I use is a pedal train. First off, they're amazing, and I'm grateful to them, and I love them, and I've bought ones from them, and they've also sent me ones. But also, the modular thing has helped me, quote unquote, build 30, 40 pedal boards. I constantly am taking things on and off. I learned around age 19 that each gig kind of needs its own setup. If I'm doing a gig where it's my solo music, I need the looper on the board so I can fly with it. If I'm doing a gig where someone's hiring me, I might need 2 pedal boards so I can capture every sound from their album. If I'm doing a gig with someone who's a real perfectionist, I might need certain pedals next to each other so I can hit them real quickly. And obviously, some of these things I'm creating, some of these problems, because I kind of refuse to do multi-effects units unless there's a really cool, unique approach on them. I generally tend to like having as much vintage equipment as I can. Obviously, some of these are new pedals, but I like vintage things that break frequently, and I have to keep getting them repaired.
Just to keep your anxiety levels high?
Yeah, exactly. I want to make sure I'm super... blood pressure needs to be super elevated. But no, yeah, I've spent a lot of time and care, figuring out my signal chains, and I'll obsess over it for days before a tour, and it'll be something as simple as, does the fuzz pedal go second or fourth in my chain? Do I want the gain going into it, or do I want it going into the gain? So I've really thought this through, and speaking of which, so after all this stuff, it goes into my Flint, reverb, the Strymon Flint, which I love. But I will say there have been times where I've popped that out for a Cathedral. I love the Cathedral, made by Electro Harmonics, because it has this awesome reverse reverb that's so cool. So I love that. And then that goes into my Freeze, which also is a huge part of my solo sets. So if I'm doing a gig, whether it's through lockdown and I'm doing it digitally, I do a lot of live stream concerts from this space, having that latch feature allows me to finish a song. Let's say I end a song and I'm I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, whoops, I forgot to actually turn it on. So something like this might happen. And now I'm in my song in E flat minor. I'm in E flat minor. Whatever. So I'll change keys in a way that's sort of magical, and it pairs really nicely with my final pedal in the chain. And while we're on our way there, so that goes into my Wampler Tumnus, the really small one. Mm-hmm. And that is basically just a boost after the reverb. I sometimes love having a boost after the reverb. Past year, I've really enjoyed it because I already have enough gain stage coloring in the beginning of the board. So this gives me just a really wild boost. And then that goes into my final pedal board. My final pedal, which is the TC Electronic Ditto X4. And I use that like it's going out of style.
Well, you briefly touched on it. There's a song on there that is named it. I want to go back to it. Is Pitchfork.
Yes. Okay.
Because you kind of glossed over that, and I feel like that's a unique pedal that gets used probably by yourself in a unique way to use that word twice. So the Pitchfork, I stumbled upon this at some sort of amp show thing, I think, in the Valley, or maybe it was at NAMM show, and I fell in love with it. And then I was messing around with it one day. For those liner note nerds, people who read those still, if you go to AllMusic or wherever, you'll notice that one of the songwriters on Pitchfork is actually Mark Foster from Foster the People. So we kind of grew up together playing gigs in LA, and one night he came over and we were just writing, just hanging out, and I played this. Let's see. You get the idea. So I was just messing around with that, and we were writing and kind of goofing around.
Fast forward a year later, I'm in the studio with Gene Coye and Jerry Watts Jr. and Katisse Buckingham. We're doing the alter ego thing. And again, we came in with very little, well, I shouldn't say compositions because we did have some, but I want it to be as hands-off as possible so we could actually capture that magic we have when we're improvising. Mm-hmm. And the more thought and perfectionism we had about playing the right parts, the more polished it would be. And I want it to be bombastic and true to what we do. But I came with this and said, hey, man, we're about to start the third song. We're just messing, we're just really going in free form. How do you guys feel about this thing? And it was basically, cool, record. And we just recorded. Just kind of improvised the melody. And then I ended up doing, this is one of 2 overdubs on the record. I overdubbed a melody that I thought through. But yeah, man, it's a song that you can't really play without this pedal. So I figured because of that, I have to title the song Pitchfork.
Now, one of the things I love about, especially you going into your pedal world, is like the signature air quotes broken sound that you sometimes come up with. And I feel it and hear it on Love Me, Chase Me. And I don't know if that's that's what's going on there. And if you can recall what you're doing there.
I love that. Thank you for bringing that up. So Love Me, Chase Me being the single from my old band Carney, that was through the 335. I think I recorded everything on that blue 335. And I used the HAO Rumble mod, and I used I've been doing the same stuff, man, for a long time. I just love these pedals, I guess. But yeah, I do love that broken sound. In fact, so much so that I recorded the guitar solo to Love Me, Chase Me on a Sigmund Midnight Special, which is his smallest amp. It's a 9 watt, 10 watt amp. And it had an Alnico hemp cone tone tubby in it. And I think at that time it was a Tungsol 6550 1 tube and an octal preamps. And I just turned that amp up. I'm actually not even sure if I used pedals on the guitar solo. I might have just cranked that amp. But yeah, I love that broken, papery, things are falling apart thing. I do.
All right, Zane, thank you so much for talking to us about all your gear, telling us the stories behind it. Now, where can people go online, obviously, to figure out and buy and check out Alter Ego when it comes out in late April, but also what you've got going on in the meantime?
Awesome, man. Thank you. Yeah, so the album Alter Ego, it comes out April 30th on Orenda Records. You can go to Bandcamp to find it or iTunes if you wanted to purchase it, and you'll be able to stream it everywhere starting that date. I think we'll already have had 3 singles out by then, and then the full album comes out. But yeah, as far as connecting with me during these lockdown seasons, or the lockdown season, I hope there are not multiples, would be on Twitch. So I've been streaming 3 to 5 days a week on twitch.tv/Zane Carney, and I use all this gear. So I use these cameras, and I use every pedal you see here, and I do some live recording and all that. But we do a really fun thing on there called One Listen Live Learns, and it basically draws upon my jazz obsession. So one thing that happens when you're playing jazz is you get thrown on stage, or rather you throw yourself on stage and you don't know the tune, you don't know the title of it, and you just got to hang and play. One thing that developed for me is being able to hear a song once and get pretty close to playing it back after the first listen. So people will send me a song and I'll play it once without pausing, and you just watch me on my iPad like stressed out, charting it as fast as I can. And then I sing it back with melody and lyrics. I usually get about 85 to 90% of it right, which is fun. Sometimes it's terrible, though, because someone sent me a Polyphia song. I was like, okay, come on. Dude. Well, I can't, give me 20 listens, man. Come on. But we have fun, and the channel has become a really fun space to explore music theory concepts and connect with people during this time. So I think that would be a great place. And finally, zanecarney.com has kind of everything.
And you're obviously active on Instagram, so Instagram/Zane Carney.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for that.
Man, I think that's a cool idea. I didn't know that that's what you're doing on Twitch. I knew you're doing live stuff. That's like a fun, in disguise, incognito way of educating.
That's what I love, man, because I had this dream, and I still have it, this dream and goal I wrote down, which is when I retire from live performing, which hopefully that's 85 or somewhere around there, I don't know, maybe 80, my goal would be to be the head of the music theory program at USC. And I just love music theory, and I don't love it for the classic reasons of getting into the minutia of, quarter tones and Lydian versus super Lydian. I love that stuff, and I study on it. But I love connecting with people and sharing basically analogies that I don't want to say teach, because it's more about us exploring together, but I try to reveal the magic behind the mystery of music. So if someone hears a chord progression, they hear, just those 3 chords, and someone says in chat, I love how that feels. And I go, yeah, it's interesting because you have 3 notes, C, E, and G, and then it goes to E, G, B. Interesting. That's just one note that got kind of removed from the family. The family diminished a little bit. 2 stayed, and then 1 kind of left, or maybe got sadder. That makes sense that you would feel that it's a little sadder. And then you go to the A minor chord, and there's this common tone of the C. It comes back, so it feels happy, but there's an A in the bass. So it's a different shade you're seeing of that person. Maybe they left, and then they came back diminished. Maybe they came back not damaged, but they've been through some stuff. This C has been through something. So we talk about analogies that help people understand the mysteries of music theory, and at the same time we do this magic trick of One Listen Live learns. It's a blast, and I love connecting with everyone when it's hard to connect because live shows haven't come back yet.
Yeah. Well, man, I appreciate your time and just the enthusiasm you bring to these things and guitar in general, Zane. I love it.
Chris, I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on, and I hope we can do this again and get through 7 more guitars.
All right, everyone. Stay safe out there and keep rocking.